work session is a review of the North Inglewood detachment inquiry. Back in late 2024, Mr. Brent Gunsberry, representative of the Pillsbury Forest Ventures and Berger Design and Construction, spoke during the public comment period of council meeting, inquiring if the city would consider detachment of the property that is generally described as the southwest corner of the intersection of Inglewood and County Road 77 or Pine Beach Road. That 40 acres is bounded by Peace on the road up the south and the corporate limits on the west. At the time of that council meeting, council informed Mr. Gunsberry that they would take his inquiry under advisement and place it on a future council meeting for discussion. Tonight it's set aside for council to have that discussion in consideration. What's been provided to you is a packet via SharePoint folder, drop of all the files that were related to the annexation which occurred in 2015. That annexation was done in conjunction with the 2015 Inglewood driveway reconstruction project. It was a direct result of the negotiation between Crow County and the city as it related to the authority or responsibility of Inglewood Road from 77 down to Wida. The direct result was an agreement with the county to take over responsibility and in turn annexing the property from Wida all the way up to County Road 77. In reviewing the documents from the 2015, as well as the information that was submitted by Mr. Gunsberry, the city leadership team did review all of the items related to this, and has concluded that the detachment of the subject area would injure the spirit and intent of the purpose of the annexation from 2015, which is outlined in the memo dated May 16th that was included in that SharePoint folder, outlining that the public purposes was for street utilities, protecting the environment, and orderly urban development. It should be noted that Mr. Gunsberry and property owners within that boundary do have the ability to seek detachment through the Office of Hearings in the state of Minnesota. That process is outlined by the statute, which is referenced in the memo. In that context, staff is of the opinion that the city council should respectfully decline the request for consideration of detachment, and if the owners would like to pursue it, they can do that through the OH process. In a nutshell, there's more details that are outlined in the memo, as well as all the support documentation from 2015 that was included in the folder link that council received. So at this point in time, entertain any questions of the council, or be looking for the council to have discussion and seeking direction or giving directive to the leadership team into providing a formal response to Mr. Gunsberry.
Council, any further questions of Brad? Hearing none, what are your thoughts?
I do have one question. Looking at the zoning map, is this currently zoned commercial industrial?
It's a combination. There are portions of this that is zoned residential. I can pull it up on the map here for you. Josh would be able to explain a little bit more in detail permitted uses and things of that nature, but the purple is commercial industrial, which was the zoning classification that was done at the time of annexation in 2015. Then you have RS in the southwest corner, the quarter section, that property abuts Peace Road. And then the orange on the other side of Inglewood is R2, which is a more dense residential. And then the red on the far right-hand side is C2, our commercial district.
No, that's pretty much sums up. Yeah, after the annexation occurs, you have under statute a specific time to establish zoning, and the city went through a detailed process to work with property owners and establish not only zoning, but comprehensive plan for the newly annexed area. And that's where that purple zone, which is CI, commercial industrial, got established specifically for that annexation area. RS is residential staging, which is more of a rural holding zone until more of an urban zone comes later for residential use with urban utilities at a later date. But yeah, all that zoning was established for that area right after the annexation happened.
Anybody else? What are our wishes? Or thoughts?
I guess based on what staff has presented and the fact that development is approaching this area, I'm not seeing a compelling reason to be in favor of a detachment.
And I have to agree and support what the staff has researched and come to the decision of.
And I would note that, the extension of sewer and water has been development driven. Obviously, 2015, the council or the city made the decision not to extend sewer and water at that time. The extension that occurred in 2024 is a direct result of a petition made by one of the property owners. At the time of 2015, it was when development warranted, or if it was required by a state mandate. And I think the city has held true to its statement there, and would not see that as being any different going forward. Excuse me, going forward in the future.
Any other thoughts?
I guess my only thought is that the property is not rural in character, has commercial on it. That's one of the reasons, I guess it should probably stay. And, really not in favor of going backwards on annexations.
I think that's where I'm coming from too. A lot of time was spent, a lot of explanations given at the time. And I think that it would be a step backwards to it's gonna happen, it's gonna go that way. And I don't think that it would be wise to bail now, so what's the point anyway? How do we move forward?
Just looking for consensus.
Just a consensus tonight.
Yeah, and then we'll formally notify, even though Mr. Cuthberry is in attendance tonight, we'll follow that with a letter.
Yeah, I can't see letting that leave the city at this point. Where the development is going that direction.
Second item, since I'm already up here. Second item on the agenda is the continuation of the discussion on roadway beds. It's a conversation that the council has had on the table and has been discussing for the last 2 work sessions. At the conclusion of the last work session, there was some additional information that was requested, such as state aid map, state aid route map, and things of that nature. That's been assembled, and Paul Sandy from SEH is here to provide a summary of that additional information that's been included in your packet.
Right, thanks for your council for having me again tonight. As Brad explained, this is a continuation of the discussion that's been had at the last 2 work sessions related to local street widths, cul-de-sac widths, and ancillary information. Within your packet tonight, we put together information. Start stepping through the arrows over.
Yeah.
I'll use that to duplicate your display.
Windows P.
Just like that, 10 minutes ago.
Here we go. Okay. So at the last 2 work sessions, we presented 3 memos to the city council related to street widths and cul-de-sac widths. The 3 memos contained, the first one was a general history overview memo, the second one was a standards review memo, and the last one was discussion and cost analysis and the recommendations memorandum. Pursuant to the last discussion we had on the May 20th work session, there was some information that the council requested that be researched and presented here tonight to help the dialogue between council members along. That includes a discussion about the potential of adding white edge or fog lines to your local street system with 10-foot wide travel lanes and 3-foot shoulders. We do have some information related to that. A map of the current city of Baxter's state aid street system for council viewing. That is what is on the screen right here. A breakdown of the local and urban street system, and we broke that down for streets that are less than 26 feet wide and streets that are 26 foot wide and greater. And then upon discussions with city staff, we had an idea to potentially do a pilot project here with the South Forest View project that was constructed in 2024 to try out this 10-foot lane and 3-foot shoulder striping as a part of our construction contract for that project. So getting into the information provided in the RCA, the consideration for restriping rural and local streets to a 10-foot wide and 3-foot with 3-foot shoulders. The facility design guide, we did a little bit of research related to what would be an adequate bike lane width for streets, or what we would be comfortable designating as an official bike lane. The facility design guide states that a designated bike lane should be at a minimum 5 feet wide. In cases where you have a constrained right-of-way or a constrained corridor, they allow 4-foot bike lanes in certain circumstances. But for purposes of this discussion, talking about a 3-foot shoulder, those would not be considered an adequate facility for a designated bike lane. Related to the Baxter, City of Baxter state aid route map and state aid system, so up here you will see in the red, that is the City of Baxter's designated state aid system. State aid allows 20% of your street system to be designated as state aid, and that means that you can receive state funding to improve those streets. That funding is subject to state aid standards, which were referenced in the policy memorandum that was provided previously. Cities may request or adjust their state aid map. There are some conditions that have to be met. If you have drawn needs or have performed construction on one of these state aid routes and you want to change that route from one road to another road, there is a payback period of 25 years, and that's considered the useful life of your road. So these roads can be moved around to where the council or deems fit. Generally speaking, the higher traffic routes are the ones that are going to be on your state aid system, because state aid gives you more funds for your higher traffic routes. There's categories that are all based on your average daily traffic on each route. So the more traffic you have on your road, the more needs you draw and the more funds you receive from state aid. Generally speaking, state aid really wants to see it interconnected and an interconnected state aid system with other regional corridors. They usually do not allow dead ends. So that is another reason why you want to have your higher traffic routes that are through routes that connect to other regional corridors or other state aid routes. Getting into or away from state aid and speaking more towards your local street system, the city of Baxter has 15.31 miles of streets that have curb and gutter or would be considered an urban section. And your rural street length is a total length of 53.21 miles. That's a total of 68.52 local street miles outside of the state aid system. Of the 53.21 miles of your local street system that is rural in nature, 14.61 of those miles is under 26 feet wide. That's about 27.5%. And 38.6 miles is 26 feet wide and greater. That's about 72.5%. So I think that question was asked of how many roads are we talking about that are 26 and greater right now? How many are still in that 24-foot category? Well, 27.5% are in that 24-foot category, and 72.5% are in that 26 and above category. So all that aside, related to this pilot project, so based on some of the discussion we've had about striping local streets, we have an opportunity right now in front of us to try a pilot project that stripes some of your local streets and evaluates the effectiveness of traffic calming, general perceived safety by pedestrians or others walking on the streets. And that would be in your self-forestry project. SEH and city staff, we reached out to the contractor that is still under contract for the self-forestry project and do punch list items right now. They would be willing to remobilize their striping contractor and stripe these streets consisting of River Vista Drive, River Vista Court, Medford Road, Riverwood Road, and Parkview Circle to this 10-foot lane width and 3-foot shoulder standard. Our intent there would be to pilot this project and take public feedback in the fall time to garner an understanding of how the public is perceiving the striped lanes in this neighborhood. Related to overall striping of your street system, there was information presented at the last work session related to the cost per linear foot for striping on your local streets. That is contained in the RCA. For a 4-inch solid line on both sides of the road, you're looking at, or at one side of the road, you're looking at 8 cents a linear foot. And that's pursuant to the county contract that you guys are entered into for the 2025 striping project. So if we look at just your rural and local street mileage of 53.21 miles, your total cost of striping all your rural streets with edge lines would be around $45,000. That's striping all your streets to that standard. city staff, made sure that we covered this, is that you guys stripe your streets in a 3-year rotation. And so, we would anticipate that if the council were to move forward with striping your local streets, that there would be a third a year that, you would take on. And that equates to about $15,000 a year in cost.
I don't know, I think I might have asked this last time, orange solid line at 8 cents a million foot for one side,
That's for one side, yep.
then your road cost is about half what it should be. Because you're giving us a linear mile, you're giving us a cost per mile. And, well, let's see, is that cost per mile on both sides?
That's cost per mile on both sides.
Okay.
Correct. Yep. That 844.60 is the cost per mile on both sides. For that pilot study, as I said before, that R.L. Larson, the contractor working South Forest View, they quoted us a cost of $6,500, and that includes mobilizing the striping contractor, performing the striping on those streets I listed below. We also had a little discussion with city staff about the cul-de-sac, with discussion that we've had a few times at previous work sessions. We did consider one alternative option for cul-de-sac construction in the future, and that is to include or construct a centered green space island on the cul-de-sacs, rather than narrowing the cul-de-sac width from 60 to 50 feet and reducing impervious surface that way. Constructing a green space cul-de-sac in the center actually gets you more, less impervious than what a 60 to a 50 foot would get you. So that green space, I did some quick numbers here before I came over here today, and the total cost savings, if you were to do the green space cul-de-sac, if you were to construct that, previously we had the year 1 construction, which is the initial construction, and we had the 25-year mill and overlay cost savings. Constructing those green space center island in the for cul-de-sacs would equate to a $17,000 cost savings per cul-de-sac. That would lessen your impervious surface by a little over 5,000 square feet per cul-de-sac. That equates to about $22,000 a year in savings if you were to construct all your cul-de-sacs that standard. Whereas reducing from a 60-foot width to a 50-foot width was presented at $11,294. So it's about twice the cost savings to hold the 60-foot radius, but construct a 40-foot radius center green space island.
What about mowing and what maintenance costs?
I don't know.
Just twice a year.
Lean on Trevor for that. I know the cul-de-sac that was constructed at South Forest View, I think the neighbors have been mowing that one, and so a lot of people take that under their own maintenance, and keeping them looking nice. But as Trevor just stated, your current policy is to mow unmowed areas twice a year.
Right now, we have 3 of them in the city limits of Baxter. One on Parkwood Court, Parkview Circle, Birchdale, and Parkwood. Parkwood is Parkwood off just south of Warren Thompson Park, has what we call the donuts, and all 3 of them are being maintained by the people that live on those cul-de-sacs. The city hasn't had to do any maintenance. But otherwise, if they wouldn't mow them, we'd mow them twice a year with the roadside mower.
I just asked one other, Brad, maybe you, the cost of paint and striping, is that a qualifier for franchise fees or not?
I'd have to research that. I'm not familiar with it. I don't know if,
That's probably not fair.
Jeremy, if you know off the top of your head, the language on the franchise fee agreement.
No, not.
No, but it could be researched.
And try not to ambush people, sorry about that.
Give me a safety thing, I don't think they could, wouldn't that fall under safety?
I don't think it would qualify under David management.
Wouldn't have qualified
So I guess to conclude, our recommendations in the RCA are consistent with the ones previously presented. But we do have some different council action consensus items that we're requesting tonight, and that is to seek council consensus on pursuing the pilot study that I detailed earlier, and using the forestry project for that pilot study. We would look to have the council seek consensus on readdressing the issue of striking all rural and local streets based on the results of the pilot study that maybe we would readdress this in the fall. And then the last one is consistent with the previous council action requested, and that is consensus on the future of the paved street and cul-de-sac subdivision regulations, so that the current ordinance language can be addressed and presented to the council if changes are warranted.
Couple questions on that. Green space. Do all of our trucks get through there when garbage trucks can get around it? Not be an issue.
I think that maintains a 20-foot travel lane around the outside, and so that would be sufficient based on the turning radius diagrams. All the rear wheels follow within that 20 feet. I don't think Trevor's had any problem following those donut cul-de-sacs in the past.
So do you store snow in the middle of those trucks?
We can. One of them we do right now, the other two we don't.
They also work for stormwater retention also. If they're compressed slightly, they allow for more space for stormwater retention.
The one on Birchdale has the homeowners there, which Daryl probably knows, is that they went in there and landscaped it all and made it really nice. It's got a lot of planters in it. They made it really nice. So they maintained that for years. But yeah, we've got two others that we can plow the snow through that area, so we use it for snow storage.
I appreciate the creativity. 5,000 square feet of completely wasted pavement in my mind. You look at most cul-de-sacs in the middle of them, there's just no reason to drive through them.
They're a nice basketball court.
Yeah, you'd land a helicopter on a lot of them, I suppose, you know. But so I appreciate that, because that was going to be one of my questions is how do these other jurisdictions survive with smaller cul-de-sacs? So if we can do that and that makes everyone happy, I would appreciate that. I had a question about the state aid map that has come up. So it's not been specifically said, so I'm gonna ask outright, is every single blue street eligible to be created into a red street if we so choose? Or are there standards we have to meet and it's limited in order to get state aid?
So you can designate any route you want, dependent, it doesn't have to be constructed that standard when you designate it. But if you ever upgrade that road that's designated as a state aid route, you have to meet the state aid standards, which are published in the policy memorandum.
Okay.
But it behooves the city to, state aid is allocated 50% on population and 50% on this needs calculation, and the needs come directly from traffic counts. So the higher your traffic counts are on your roads, the more state aid needs money you're gonna get.
So the vast majority of the blue lines up there would be unwise of us to try to use state aid funding for.
I believe the city went through a process to evaluate or do a pretty extensive evaluation on their current state aid system, and I think a couple of adjustments were made based on that evaluation.
We make adjustments about every 3 years. When the new traffic counts come out, then we reevaluate the map and take a look at it. We should adjust any of the state aid routes in order to draw the maximum needs and get the most dollars we can for our state aid roads.
And Trevor, it's, the last time we did that was in conjunction with the Foley Road project, right?
Correct.
Because Foley Road wasn't designated as a state aid, but through that revision, we shifted the mileage. Now Foley Road is, I forget which road we,
Foley Road from Knollwood to Inglewood, and the Inglewood Railroad crossing on the south side of 210 all had to be designated as a state aid road.
but when we
remove, what mileage did we remove it?
We removed the Knollwood crossing 210.
Yep.
So then if we wouldn't have connected it again, either to County Road 48 or to Inglewood, then we would have had to undesignate all of Knollwood down to County Road 48. See what we gain too each year is if we add new mileage to the road system every year, 20% of that can be designated as state aid. So we're gaining state aid mileage every year that we build new roads. When we build Cypress, now Devontae Road for Quick Trip, and now we're building Timberwood and Jamesville for Amazon. Those roads, now we gain more state aid mileage that we need to designate. If we don't designate it, we don't draw the needs, and we don't get the money coming in for construction of our state aid system. Construction and maintenance.
That's what I was trying to get at. It moves around, it's based upon new mileage. And it's part of the puzzle that's breathing and continues to.
We look at reallocating about every 3 years, but we're looking at trying to maximize the added mileage every single year. Every single year you have to certify the needs and the road miles for the city of Baxter with state aid.
I would be in support of trying the pilot study. Plus, there's already money in the budget for it, right? It's $6,000 or so.
I would like to try that. I think along with it though, aside from maybe just a report from people, maybe we gotta have some radar data down there.
It'd be nice to see.
Those current speed limit flasher radar things down that road, do those record anything?
They do, yeah.
Yes.
I like numbers, so.
Is that truck out there?
I know my dad yelled at by those signs.
And unfortunately, I think too, I want to confirm, I think that the signs you're referencing are outside of the area where we would narrow the lanes. So I guess maybe we could use the trailer to figure out speed change inside this test area and then see how much faster people are going out in North Forest View. I don't know if the technology allows for that.
I would have to check. I don't believe that trailer that we have actually records the data for speed, but I would have to check on that.
Okay.
We could look at a couple of temporary ones and set them up on River Vista. Zach, we could sure take and do that for the summer, and rent a couple and put up a couple portables that records and flashes out there.
Is Forest View in the south half already striped and with the wider lanes?
That's already striped at 11-foot drive lanes and 5-foot bike lanes. 11-foot doesn't seem to slow anybody down. We've done 11-foot on Fairview, Foley, Memorywood, Knollwood, Forest View. We've done a lot of 11-foot drive lanes over the last 5 to 6 years. But that's why I want to try the 10-foot and see if the 10-foot, East Gull Lake and Madden's took and switched a road from 55 miles an hour to 30 and then striped it at 10-foot drive lanes. Paul's very aware of the project, and that actually has slowed the traffic down. And that's on Madden's out to the point. That is all striped as 10-foot drive lanes in order to get it down to 30 miles an hour. And so that the golf carts and the others, people can use the shared surface of the rest of the paved shoulders and stuff. And that has worked out. So 11-foot doesn't seem to be being too successful yet. Well, I want to see if the 10-foot actually does. It'd be nice if we had a major collector road that we were doing right now, and put it at 10-foot and see what happened, you know. If it really truly does slow the traffic down.
The only other point of discussion that I want to throw out there is I don't know if we've got a map of the roads that are currently 24. And I know consistency is always nice, but I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around found a justification for actually making those 26 feet, just because at least the ones I've seen so far have been smaller, lower traveled, often dead ends. And I don't know if maybe I'm pushing the conversation further than the rest of the council would want to go there. I don't know if consistency is more important, or that 27.5% staying 24 feet wide would be okay by me, but.
Well, I think there's two components to that. Well, you have existing roads, and I think Councilmember Lucio and yourself were shocked at the lack of savings for going down to 24, based on 26, and that has more to do with the subsurface. It still remains 26, you're not gonna take away the subsurface. So really, your only saving is that 2 inches, that 2 feet of bituminous, at the top, you still have that. But I think to your point, you're also saying for our policy, new roads, yeah, 24 feet, so that you don't have, you're reducing the initial cost of the construction, because you're only going 24 feet with your subsurface as well. So I think there's two components. There's the maintenance component, and there's the new standard component in that context. And that's not lost on us in that in these conversations. And so I think there's a different conversation in regards to maintenance versus new. As was stated, where there's new roads or extension of roads that are being done on an annual basis. We had a new residential development, we would require to meet 26, this 24, gonna meet that standard. So I think that's really where we were getting back is there's two realities here. There's the existing and then there's new construction. And playing with that is what we're really looking for is how do you want us to address the policies as it relates to existing and new.
I think it would be good to see that map because, like you say, Zach, is to show that Mountain Ash south of 48 down to Mapleton Road is one of them. That's 24, but in my opinion needs to be wider. That's one of we shoulder it every single year because the snowplow operators are going over the edge and people are driving over the edge. So it's a battle to keep that shouldered. It's also, of course, got the hills with the slopes. Part of Cedar Scenic from Red Sequoia out to the county line is still 24, and that's more of a collector road. And then the one that's coming up in presentation here, in just a little bit, is Clearwater Road from Emerywood to the beach. That's only 24 because we put it in as a temporary road, but I wouldn't recommend rebuilding it without putting it back to 26 because of the amount of cars and stuff on there. And right now, the shoulder, it's already eaten in several spots up into the bituminous. It's already giving on that 24-foot map. So you put it back at 24, it ain't gonna make 25, 30 years. And so there's some roads on that, in that 27% yet that should be discussed. And then I think the other thing that is like Brentwood Circle. This Brentwood Circle is a cul-de-sac. This cul-de-sacs go to 24 feet, but the main roads in those neighborhoods stay at 26. Is there things like that should be considered and talked about? So that you have more shared surface on the main corridors through those neighborhoods, but the cul-de-sacs go down to 24. A lot of times the cul-de-sacs are straight shots. That's the other reason that it helps us from maintenance. Our biggest problem is that you gotta be perfect on a 24-foot wide road when you're plowing with that snowplow truck that we showed you out here in the yard. You know, where that heel of the wing is, and you get off that center line a little bit, that heel goes over the edge and it's not frozen, it just digs right in, and now we're shouldering right away in the spring. So it's things like that we were talking about both from a maintenance standpoint, long-term costs, of maintaining is a big concern too. So I don't know if one thing fits all. Like you're saying, Zach,
That
think there was a reference made at the last one is to, you know, feasibility reports being drafted at a certain width. And then the verification as to, justification as to the reason why. It's being proposed to be larger than that, you know, or wider than that. And so it's just, you know, each feasibility report is being done to policy. Right now, the policy is 26 feet. So we're looking for that directive from the council. It's how do we complete these? Because you can see feasibility reports 6 to 8 times a year. And it's always based upon that policy. So we're looking for that policy related directive so that we can come back with one for formal consideration.
I think I could see, like, basically starting with a 24-foot road and needing to argue it up to 26 feet. Like Trevor, you mentioned all those roads you mentioned, absolutely, that all makes sense to be 26 foot wide. I think even there's some smaller, you know, smaller collector roads that make sense to be 26 foot wide. But yeah, like the roads that are either dead end cul-de-sac or the ones that kind of roads that don't go very far or won't have future development on them, I can see maybe start with that 24-foot road and argue up instead of arguing down.
So the one that we have not added to our policy is in the residential neighborhoods where we went to 32-foot of pavement with 11-foot drive lanes and 10-foot bike lanes on Forest View, Camwood Trail, Scenic River. That's not written anywhere in our policy. Memorywood's a 32-foot map. We never did, even though we've been doing it since about 2016 was the first year I think we did the first one, which was Fairview out here. We never added that to the ordinance of what to do if it is bike lanes in a residential neighborhood, or what that width should be. Because if a developer comes in that's on one of those corridors, there's no guidance of what to have them build, except right now they have to build a 26 foot. But if our bike lane policy shows a bike lane on that corridor, you know, there's no guidance in the ordinance of what to do. Other than we have the past practice of what we have to do.
Would Isle Drive be an example of that?
Yes, Isle Drive is, but that's commercial, that's a different cross section than a residential.
So we're just looking at, there's, at some point on Isle Drive, we have a bike lane on either side of the road and a bike path on either side of the road. So we have 4 different options for bikes or pedestrians to cruise down this road then.
And legally, bikes can use the vehicle lanes, so they have 2 extra opportunities.
So we really should really open up that policy manual and review it, because I don't know if any one of the 5 council members agree with it today. And yet, that is our policy that we're supposed to be following as city staff.
On top of that, as you referenced the North Forest View neighborhood, there's that entire 40-acre chunk that was left to the developer. I think we want a policy before someday somebody shows up saying, I'm building whatever I want there. Because I can see that happening any day.
Yeah, we gotta come to peace with something. I think we're all getting shot warned about this subject, you know, so we need to come to some. The next ones we're gonna be looking at, we're taking a road that's gonna be for existing 40-foot. There's all kinds of challenges just in the next 2 or 3 segments here. So as much as possible, if we can come to some conclusions to how, and maybe Patrick's right, you know, start with 24 is the starting point, and work our way up from there to bring some stability to it, so everybody knows what's going on, and we don't have to keep beating this thing to death. And developer will know what he's got to run with, and then he he doesn't have to come before us each night to plead a different case, you know, so as much as possible, it would be good for us to come to, some sort, yeah, maybe we wait till your study is done down there on the south, I don't know, but, it kind of concerns me a little bit because we're looking at, approving some feasibility reports that are gonna maybe be numbers we don't want, so, you know what I'm saying, I don't know where we're at with any of these things, if they're all gonna come back in 26 and we don't want 26, then, maybe that's not a big deal, we can just reduce it, but.
So should those be tabled, or do we?
For the sake of 26, I think we can all come to consensus in regards to many of the roads within the 26 project. I think it's primarily as the Clearwater one. You have it as a collector stream, that state aid is shown on the map, up until you get to Memory Wood. It's the portion west of Memory Wood, and it gets down to a 24-foot rural design that, with sewer water extension, is be the opportunity to identify that with what Trevor is indicating is based upon that still being a collector, though it's not designated as state aid. He's recommending that get to 26 feet to Whipple Beach, to Welton.
But then we got Lindale Court, Lindale Lane, and Lindale Drive that we have to decide to.
Yep, those are all 24. They're all 24 as it exists today.
Yep. And right now, in the feasibility study, we show being rebuilt in 26.
That was my point.
Except for Brentwood
I
Circle.
believe.
We're not going to steal Neil's thunder because he was going to go into explanation
Yeah.
of that in the PowerPoint. So
Most of that sounds to me like stuff that fits into Mr. Sundberg's suggestion of if there's a solid argument for moving from 24 to 26, I'm not that rigid. I just really want to push for efficiency in our pavement.
And number 5 on the agenda is not until 2030 anyway, so we're looking at 3 and 4.
Hopefully, we're not still arguing about this in 2030.
I guessed it.
We have consensus though on 2 things, right? We have consensus on,
proceeding with the pilot.
and consensus that we do the donut on
Do the
the cul-de-sacs.
And I think that there was a general consensus with the 24 non-stated residential for feasibility or with a wider to be justified by project by project basis.
Agree with there?
Yep.
Sounds good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, number 3, let's run with that. That guy right there. What's that?
All right, good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight's presentation is for the 2026 Clearwater Road, North Lindale area, and Brentwood Circle Street Utility Improvements Project. This presentation is a general preview of what we intend to present at a neighborhood meeting on June 24th. And tonight we're looking for feedback, particularly on an annexation parcel that will be identified here, and some of the street width feedback that was just recently discussed. So this project is 3 separate areas. The council has previously approved 2 different reports for these areas, and this presentation is just combining all 3 of the project areas under the umbrella of one project. So one area is Clearwater Road from Welton Road to Memory Wood Drive. And my plan here tonight, because there's a lot on the agenda, is to zip through, because it's all stuff you've seen before. anytime you want. The North Glendale area that has been discussed throughout a few presentations, and Brentwood Circle. Those are just the street names. And as outlined in the city's comp plan, there are many neighborhoods, or several neighborhoods, and these are 3 of the 5 remaining neighborhoods that have previously been identified to have sewer and water extended to them. This is we'll touch more on this slide as we get to the schedule, but this was kind of intended for the neighborhood to see the key pieces when we bring them in on June 24th for that meeting, discuss the improvement hearing and some of the other next steps. Purpose and need, I think we're all well aware of, municipal sewer and water, and take care of the poor street conditions, existing conditions. All areas were 24 feet wide, or are 24 foot wide, and we'll be looking to build them to city standard width to the general residential pavement section. These are snippets of what's in the report. Street widths are things we can identify as we wrap up this presentation or as the project moves forward. Trail reconstruction, just purple area on Clearwater Road. That trail exists today, and we'd be just replacing it with this project due to the sewer and water work underneath or underground. Worth noting, just more trigger memory than anything, no sanitary sewer or water in the majority of the neighborhoods, but there is water main in place on Brentwood Circle. So there are no wells on Brentwood Circle, but there are septic systems there. Proposed improvements, generally 8-inch sewer and 8-inch water, water lines to each particular, water and sewer services to each parcel, hydrants, and then we have a lift station shown near Welton Road, right in the Whipple Beach area, and a force main pipe would be in place along Clearwater Road as well. I'll sit through these improvements unless someone would like me to stop. Total project cost summary here broken down into the general categories, sewer, water, storm, road improvements, and trail, for a grand total all-in project of just over $7.4 million. A lot of assessment slides here that will be just discussed at the neighborhood meeting to give the neighborhood or the residents a little information. Obviously, the city is paying for trails and lighting per typical, and then the assessments are for sewer, water, and road. These are just the assessment maps, the maps and all the deferred assessments and the practicality figures have been previously reviewed and I'll say approved for this project. The one thing we'll want to touch on later is hard to see at this scale, but the very north parcel on Lindale Road is currently not within the city limits. So that's something we'll jump into near the end here. And this map shows one immediate set of assessments and 3 deferred for a total of 4. Brentwood Circle, again, just for talking purposes, does not have water assessments. And just a lot of basic assessment information that will be provided. It's a lot more than you want to read, but our intent is just to give handouts to the folks that are coming in. I think we're all pretty tuned into assessments, but I don't know that the folks that are seeing them for the first time necessarily are. It's a general breakdown of the typical assessment. Slight adjustments will be made to these values just based off of some internal discussion over the last couple of days, but ballpark of just under 21,000 for the assessment. For a single parcel, we intentionally dropped the second slide in for the neighborhood meeting to give those folks that have one improved parcel and one parcel that is vacant a little taste of what the deferred assessment means and how those ERUs may affect them. And just for Brentwood Circle, there's no water main assessment, so it's $14,300 and change for Brentwood Circle residents. Financial summary, not much different between the two options, but the report itself did identify two different tables with two different costs, just largely table 1 that's shown here shows everything as benefiting assessments and deferred. Table 2 or table 7.2 in the report identifies future connection charges and just kind of moves the amount assessed around a little bit based off of that. This is our current schedule. Today's presentation, tomorrow evening at Utility Commission, neighborhood meeting June 24th, formal adoption scheduled for the first meeting in July, an improvement hearing later in July, and then ordering the improvement in August, and so on. And just a little bit of information we'll provide the neighborhood to get them tuned into what construction will mean. This project moves forward next year, and we have started a project website, and we'll be providing a notification letter with this website to residents this week. This is all I have. Are there any questions? I'm available to answer any of those.
None of this information is mailed out yet.
Correct.
Okay. Council, any questions of you?
Just one tying to our 24 to 26 discussion. How are we handling that for this situation? Your numbers are currently moving everything to 26, but I know there's at least a couple of streets in there that are not all that.
I'll do my best to answer. So one of the things that we discussed in the last couple days with staff was that the width of the street does not impact the assessment amount, and it does slightly impact the total project cost. So Brentwood was approved at 24, so that's how it's shown in the report. The other two project areas, the discussion wasn't as far along several months ago, or last year, I believe, when that feasibility was approved, so those are shown at 26. The intent was to gather feedback on that here, Utility Commission through the neighborhood process, and perfect world, it would all be decided with the feasibility report July 1st. Because the assessments are fixed, that's something that can get updated throughout the process and modified at a later date is how we have handled it at the staff level with that discussion. Anything to add on that?
No, we can change it anytime.
Did you say that the width of the street doesn't affect the assessment amount? Or the ERU?
Correct, so with these particular projects, I'll use the word subsidized because that's kind of how it's been. That was the background mainly with the North Forest View project carried through to South Forest View. The assessments were basically capped. So it's a lot different than how the city is looking at a lot of the FDR projects or the mill and overlays. It's a little bit of a different concept, for lack of a better way of saying it.
2000, in conjunction with the north half of Forest View, council adjusted its policy to have a flat rate or assessment, which is about 60% of the cost for sewer, water, and street. And so that dollar amount was set, and it was to have an inflationary factor of 3% or CPI, whichever is greater. So at that point in time, it was 15,800 or 16,000 around. And each year we've had a cap of what the assessment is since that initial project. And so any reflection in the change of assessment is based upon that 3% CPI inflation. And again, that policy only relates to street, sewer, and water projects. Where there's sewer, water, or both, and street, because we're ripping on the street to lay the infrastructure.
consensus on annexation and have final discussion on that?
Yeah, is there, as Neil alluded to, that very southern line of the property that is, I don't know how you define it, would be the Lindale extended off of Wida, happens to be outside corporate limits. We are going to approach the owner about annexation, but in that context, we don't have the authority to assess properties that are outside our corporate limits. So just kind of trying to get a general understanding. If council wants to pursue annexation, in the event that there is not cooperation, or if council is okay with holding it as a future connection charge, in the event that the property gets annexed in the future or developed in the future. Right now, it's shown as being annexed in the corporate limits under the feasibility report with one immediate assessment and 3 deferrals.
For talking purposes, it's the very north property on this map.
Is there a preferred recommendation by staff or?
And having not had any conversation with the ownership, I would want to reserve for that, but in all ideologies, you want to have that in the corporate limits to require the connection, as we indicated in all of our sewer, water, street projects. We're doing it for multiple reasons. Environment, this is a money event Sand Lake. We want to preserve the environmental integrity of that lake. So there are reasons why you would want to pursue annexation. Out of respect, I just haven't had the opportunity to approach the owner. You know, we're entering into these areas where the end of the useful life of the septic systems are near or at the end, where they're at in replacement. We know some have been replaced, and others that haven't, so I don't have any information regarding their septic system or anything like that to see if they're at that point and are encouraged and want to participate, but the individual's been on the mailing list, and so would anticipate that we'll be in communication with them here shortly.
I can't have an opinion on it until I hear more.
Yeah.
Looking at those tracks on the splits of, what is it, 1, 2, 3 of the 4 already have something on them.
I think 2 of the 4. The red obviously is the house. The first blue, I believe, is a detached garage.
That's what you're looking at, Zach?
Yeah, exactly. It looks like there's a building on the red, and then, yeah, track B and C appear to both have structure.
Yeah, garages, I believe, but they're all buildings, but yes, they're structures.
We wait to hear from you, staff, then, or?
Yeah, we'll provide feedback.
Okay. Item number 4.
Right.
So, what you've got in your packet, included a memo, I did update that memo. There was one thing on the table that was a carryover from previous.
proposed roads for 2026. A lot of discussion on road widths, and we can talk about that too. So, for 2026, we started with all of these roads: blue, magenta, red, and yellow. Kind of yellow is kind of hard to see. This was initiated just prior to the final results of the updated PACER ratings. So once we got those updated PACER ratings, we really took a deep dive into those and looked at what those PACER ratings are doing. And that's related to this memo talking about, as these roads deteriorate, it's really showing that they're deteriorating, they're following that curve. As they get to a certain point, they start to dive off a little bit deeper. So taking a look at some of these areas, we wanted to also keep in mind, a project area. You want to try to have all your roads, for the most part, in an area that makes sense to construct. You don't want to completely piecemeal, because then once, we come back next year and do another road, and now we're driving on a fresh road we just did the previous year. That doesn't tend to make much sense. So in that memo, you'll see this table, and we really focused on the PACER ratings going from 2022 to 2025. You can see roads like Naughty Pine Drive, took a pretty drastic change in those 3 years, going from a 6 to a 4. Whereas you get to Dogwood Drive, it didn't change at all. Went from a 6 to a 6. So we use this to kind of reallocate those roads and defer these roads. So for residential areas, that top box, those kind of may went past that mill and overlay stage and into the recommendations of an FDR. So with those being 4s and 5s, they could actually get a little bit worse. So we're gonna let those roads get a little bit worse and then recommend an FDR down the road. Jasperwood Drive, similar case. The road is in really poor shape. I was kind of surprised to see a 5 in the PACER rating. But there's a lot of areas of stripping and patching, which could elevate their score. But with that road and then future potential projects literally down the road, down Jasperwood, down Paris Road, it makes sense to kind of push Jasperwood off, because there could be a potential for a lot of construction and traffic in the near future. As we get to the commercial areas, Dogwood Drive, Douglas Fir, Hastings Road, these roads this is an area where the commercial that isn't up to that 10-ton standard yet. With these roads still rating at a 5 or a 6, they could get a lot worse. The goal would be to complete an FDR on these to get these up to a 10-ton, and based on the PACER rate, they can get a little worse. So we'll keep an eye on these roads and make that recommendation when they are due for a rehabilitation.
So go back to that though. Explain, we're recommending reevaluating some of them in 27 and 28 according to your chart?
Yeah, yep. So that kind of coincides with we'll end up doing a reevaluation. The PACER ratings won't be due until 2028. But in 2027 or 2026, next year, we'll take a look at these roads again and see if that, try to catch them on that curve before they get too much worse. So in this, the Naughty Pine area, the Oakdale Road, Ottertail Circle, that's the second half of that neighborhood. So that would, then make sense to come back and do that after the fact. 2027 is the year that we have slated for reevaluation right now. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen in 2027. Similar with the FDR roads in the commercial area, we'll take a look at them again in 2028 and see how they're doing and make the decision at that time to either defer them further or recommend them for a rehab. Is that for sure? So these are the final roads that we are recommending to have rehab for 2026. Kind of again, similar to 2024, lots of roads spread out across the town, which, is shown to be difficult for the contractor, but it is doable. So we'll get into each of those road segments. So for the mill and overlay, typical operation, we're profile mill about 1.5 inches, and that's evolving as we learn more about the mill and overlay roads, and then ultimately put back 2 inches to reestablish that crown. And part of that, we would review the sanitary sewer manhole lids, the castings. If those need to be replaced, those will be replaced. And then there weren't a lot of drainage issues in these areas. But as we talk to more residents, maybe they have areas that they see all the time that I just didn't happen to catch holding water. So it's an opportunity to do that as well. So the first few roads, Joneswood Circle, in 2020, or was last improved in 2003, is 26 feet wide, and went from a 6 to a 4 in Pacer rating. So a 4 is qualifications for full depth reclamation, but Joneswood Circle is a very short stretch of road. This would be a candidate to do some full depth spot repair. That threshold on that full depth spot repair is about 20%. Once you full depth spot repair, about 20% of that road it's not cost effective. You might as well just take all the pavement off. So on this road, we'll probably do additional pavement removal to make sure that subgrade is holding up appropriately. But we would still recommend a mill and overlay instead of an FDR for this road. Joneswood Drive, again, in all these roads in this area were improved in 2003, and I believe are all 26 feet wide. But Joneswood Drive went from a 6 to a 5 and a 6. They have a split in there, so this is still a good candidate for mill and overlay. And there are some large areas of crack sealing there, so it's a good time to catch this, and that area right there could be a full depth patch. So we want to try to catch this before that pavement deteriorates too much. Joshua Tree Circle and Joshua Tree Drive. Again, going from a 6 to a 5, would recommend a mill and overlay on these. There is a section of Joshua Tree Circle where we would redo the trail that extends up to Mapleton. Naughty Pine Drive, it's just the short stretch in there that doesn't see a lot of traffic. It's not a through road. There's just a few houses on there, about 6 or 8. So that's stayed pretty consistent. And as we're in this area, doing all the other improvements, it would be a good time to still do the improvement on Naughty Pine Drive. Marble Road, west of Jasperwood. Again, just going from a 6 to a 5 and a 6. So showing the large patch right there where we would most likely do a full depth spot repair. Cherrywood Drive was constructed in 4 different years and chip sealed in 2015 and 2017. It is 26 feet wide with 4 inches or 3.5 inches of bituminous and 4 inches of base. Pacer ratings going from a 6 to a 5 and a 6. There are some drainage issues, as council has heard from a resident on that road, and we've prepared, we've thought through and did some research on previous ideas that were thought about for this area. Also kind of bringing, a possible solution to remedy those drainage issues. Also, there is some water main exploratory excavation required in this area to determine if there's any plastic tees. Timberlane was constructed in 2001, chip sealed in 2014. There are some areas of stripping and patching on this road. So it went from a 7 in 2002 or 2022 to a 5 and a 6 in 2025. This road is nearing that point of hitting that slope on the curve, so it's going to start to deteriorate fairly quickly, I believe. Again, another road where water main exploratory excavations are required, and then some hydrant restorations. Those are identified in the 2020 report. Parkwood, still in that Timberwood area, Timber Lane area. Again, constructed in 2001, chip seal 2014, going from a 7 to a 6, and very similar to Timber Lane. Woodland Drive is actually deteriorating fairly quickly. This road is 24 feet wide, and has a little bit less base than the other two roads. And we're noticing some subgrade failures, so that's why you're seeing it going from a 7 to a 4 in just those 3 years. A good example is the shoulder right here. It is starting to drop really bad and fail. So this would be another area where we would probably just do a full depth pavement removal and then pave back 3.5 inches with potentially beefing up that subgrade a little bit, changing the grade of the road. Going to residential full depth reclamation. The goal for these roads would be to reclaim the full depth, or just shy of the full depth of the current pavement section. We would compact and leave 5 inches of base, and pave back 3.5 inches of bituminous and 2 lifts. As always, we would replace the driveways to the right-of-way line and swap out the manhole lids and any other ones that need to be replaced. First one is Jolly Road. This was looked at in 2023 and pulled before the final steps in that project. So we're bringing this one up again. This road is 26 feet wide and only has 2 inches of bituminous and 4 inches of base. This road is shot. It is going from a 4 and a 5 to a 3 and a 4, and is in need of major repair, because that's a lot of crack sealing there. It's just, might as well just paint the road at that point. But then as part of this road, there's 2 options in the trail that were initially talked about, and it's kind of depending on what the city wants to move forward with, as far as if you have it in the budget to, do a full depth reclamation on the trail and put the trail back, or FDR the trail and cover that with topsoil and seed, and then come back at a later date and potentially pave that. Right, I don't know the genesis for the 2 options, but it is something that staff wanted to talk about. Next area is Forest Drive. The Forest Drive area is another one that was looked at in 2023, I believe. So bringing this up for reevaluation. Constructed in 2001 and chip sealed in 2014. There's a lot of areas of stripping and failure, as you can see, going from a 5 and a 6 in 2022 to a 4 and a 5 in 2025. So this road is actively failing. There are, it's been a fairly damp area. The scud grade is not strong enough to hold up to the traffic, and FDR would be recommended. We worked on fixing some drainage issues along the road, along with doing some water main exploratory excavations, and there's also hydrants in this area too. Fox Place, again, same as Forest Drive. There's constructed 2001, chip sealed 2014. Lots of stripping showing, and going from a 6 to a 5 in those 3 years. Again, it's nearing that curve, so it's starting to fail quickly, and FDR would be recommended on this one as well. Fox Road, again, constructed in 2001, chip sealed in 2014. Going from a 5 to a 4 in those 3 years, you can see the shoulders failing. There's not a lot of room for that runoff to go, so it sits on the pavement a lot and really impacts the pavement and deteriorates it quickly. For the commercial areas, again, we'd be reclaiming down the full depth of that current pavement section, and putting that back to a 6 inches of reclaimed base compacted and 6 inches of bituminous to get that 10-ton design replacing all the driveways to the right-of-way line, and again, replacing all the castings as necessary. These areas, if you go back to that first map, there were 2 areas in those pacer ratings that identified a little bit worse. This being one of them, being a 4, going from a 4 to a 5. It is failing quickly, and it'd be nice to try to get some of those outer areas done in this general vicinity. Get these done and up to a 10-ton rating. You can see there's significant patching and some stripping in this area as well. Hinkley Road is the other portion, wanting to get this up to a 10-ton design as development grows through there, curb and gutter replacement, and replacing the castings. Boyer Road, this was initially looked at in 2022 and was pulled. The portion that abuts commercial properties was pulled to reevaluate now. Pacer ratings going from a 7 to a 5. Again, that one was kind of surprising. White Oak Road, if you've driven through there, is quite terrible. A lot of patching and needs to be replaced. Along with those replacements, curb and gutter replacement, that median does not meet. It's only, I believe, a 6-inch median, so it would not likely hold up to the construction, and there's a lot of areas on that median that can be replaced anyway. So that's what we'll be proposing on White Oak. So as far as cost for the residential mill and overlay, total project cost is a little over $1.5 million. Taking out the city costs, leaving a little over $1 million for the assessable amount, bringing the roadway per ERU to 7,700. For the residential full depth reclamation, just looking at Joller, total estimated cost is about $260,000, taking away the city cost, and that city cost is the FDR replacing topsoil and seeding over, so it's not the higher cost for replacement, but that would leave about $14,000 per ERU for an assessment for those lots. For the residential full depth reclamation in the Forest and Fox area, that is just under $1 million, taking out the city costs for those repairs. And also there's some frontage on the north end that connects, where it connects to Clearwater Road. That is office space zoning, so that's actually per linear foot. So we calculated the linear foot, excluded those costs from that to get the remaining assessable cost, leaving for an assessment of about $7,500 per ERU. For the commercial, those costs are estimated just under $1.4 million, and taking out the city roadway costs, it would leave an estimated cost per linear foot of $312. So moving forward, if council agrees with this report and would like to move forward, the next step would be that public informational meeting. Given some of the conversations with roadway widths, if the report needs to be updated for a lesser width on these residential roads, that public informational meeting and the schedule would be pushed back slightly, but otherwise it's tentatively for the next council meeting for approval, barring any modifications. Are there any questions?
Questions, council?
I've got a couple. Joller Road, what would happen if we just didn't touch the trail?
That trail is in need of repair. That end, it doesn't meet ADA standards. The head ramp, there's the road that connects to Joller, blanking on that one. That head ramp was just redone. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely an option to not do that trail.
I in part just want to, or my concern comes from having been in the original conversation to push this off, and there's still only less than 10 houses there. They're gonna have the exact same concerns they had last time. And I guess looking at it in the context of the city, I just want to throw out there that maybe there are other parts of town that are a higher priority, unless you all really believe that that's what needs to be done.
Yeah, the trail is, that goes to the ADA transition plan, and when you're doing, significant improvements to areas, you need to update those ADA facilities. So that would be probably that only carrot on that.
Okay, thank you. I look for a motion to adjourn the workshop so we can get ready for the
I'll move to adjourn.
council meeting.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Being that we didn't get to the fifth item, we'll just hold number 12 on the consent agenda and
We've got some 2030.
table it for next council.
Thank you and welcome to our council meeting. The first thing on our agenda tonight is a presentation. I had talked to Trevor a few weeks ago about coming and give us a little, number one, get to introduce you to some of the people that might not know you, and give us an introduction to what's going on at the art, fill us in rather, and introduce your guest here. And we have two Trevors in our in-house, and now there's one with the arms, and people say, I talked to Trevor, I go, which one? Trevor's everywhere now, so Trevor's doing a great job, so go ahead and join us here and bring us up to date.
Well, thanks for having me. And this is my lovely girlfriend, Ashley. This is going to be a short presentation. I feel like it's about a year overdue, and I want to give everybody some updates, what's going on with the Arboretum, kind of our change in direction of our mission to focus more on outdoor recreation and become a regional tourism hub and drive some micro and macro tourism in Greater Baxter and Crow County. So, and there's some Woodset people here today, which is kind of cool because they're going to get a shout out. All right. So the Arboretum just celebrated 50 years in business last year. They've actually, they covered up the landfill dump 52 years ago, but they didn't start nonprofit operation until 50 plus years ago. So we made it. We're continuing to make it. It's always been a thin budget, but it's a really cool operation. It's a piece of property worth protecting. I'll talk just briefly about my background, and then I'll talk about the future direction of the Arboretum and the board of directors. And one of my bosses is sitting here today, so one of 9. Thanks, Patrick. Appreciate it. So I had a lot of education. I spent years in recreation, sport, and tourism management, both as a professor and a doc student. I essentially researched user-based perspectives of park design principles and recreation economics. How do we make parks that people enjoy? How do we make parks that are sustainable? How do we make parks that drive revenue to local areas, local economies, either whether a county or a city, just depending. I was also a director of Parks and Rec, and so that was one of the things I was tasked with at the last organization I worked for in the city of Blue Lake. I am definitely a recovering professor. I have no plans of returning to academia. I really like my job. I think I have the best job in town. Okay, regional designation. So 23 months ago, when I took over as the executive director at the Northland Arboretum, there wasn't a master plan. We had no survey results. We had nothing besides the SCORP, the statewide outdoor recreation comprehensive plan, right? So it's this big plan that says, this is what people in the state of Minnesota want. This is what parks directors, cities, municipal organizations, nonprofits should be doing. And I said, cool, well, where's our survey data? Well, we didn't have it. We literally had no idea what our members wanted besides anecdotal evidence that they wanted something more, something different. but it was impossible to parse out what exactly they wanted. So as we went through this process, I knew that we would have to have a master plan approved by the Crow Wing County, and that we'd have to get it approved by the state eventually to get regional designation. Once you become a regionally designated park or facility, you're eligible for state funding through the legacy dollars. Last year, Greater Minnesota, 53 counties all play for this little 20% pot of money, but it's still like $13.5 million, right? And so it's only for infrastructure development, not operational. They don't pay insurance, they don't pay your bills, they don't pay for staffing. If you have a really cool idea that you think can sustain itself operationally, the state will come in and say, oh, that is a really cool idea. We'll help you with the infrastructure. You need to show how you're gonna run it. And so Friday at 4:59 p.m., after 2 years, I finally submitted our regional designation application. It was 126 pages. It was harder than my dissertation. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I'm so glad that I'm done with that project, and we're taking the rest of the week off. If you have any questions about that, I can always deep dive, but I try not to. So our pillars, we focus on education, outdoor recreation, and conservation at the Arboretum. I manage 413 acres. It's a bunch of diverse habitats. But we really know that conservation is like, it's the cool thing, but it's really, really hard to pay the bills on conservation. So we're trying to shift to outdoor recreation a little bit more so we can expand our conservation efforts, okay? So you'll see a lot of recreation development. You'll see what I do. I build disc golf courses, manage skating rinks, horse arenas, things that are affordable options in cities for kids and families to do. So no different at the Arboretum. So we procured funding in the last 2 years to build accessible raised garden beds and expand our G101 giving program. We donate 2,500 pounds of fresh produce to Crow Wing County residents experiencing food insecurity every year. It goes to the food shelves at the college, but it also goes to Garrison and Emily everywhere. If you don't know our G101 program, it's a really cool program to look into. It's probably our biggest giving program where we can give back to the community, maybe outside of Arbor Day. Whitset did us a super solid deal on playground design. Probably would have cost us about $10,000, but one of the people was a master gardener. They got approval to use their master gardener hours, and then Whitset wrote off a bunch of the expenses. So they did all the engineering and concept mapping for our nature-based playscapes, the ADA accessible playground that has an edible garden, climbing wall, handicap parking, climbing logs, which we nabbed out of the woods of the Arboretum. These are actual pictures of the playscape. So you can see there's a granite climbing wall, but we also have a climbing wall of tan poles. There's little stick things, you make forts. There's a little walk-through tunnel. The whole thing is butterfly pollinator habitat. So it ended up costing us a little bit more money, but we had some generous donors that wanted to see the importance of conservation, and we have a little edible garden so the kids can go in and eat like little edible Minnesota native berries and stuff. It's a pretty cool deal. We finished that project last year. We're putting in the signage this year. We are working with the Dutch government on an inventory management system. I signed a 3-year contract, so when you go to the Arboretum, by next year, all of our 413 species of flora will be scannable. So we can't get the kids off their phones, so we kind of gave up, and we're going to have them interacting with the gardens in a meaningful way. The next thing the board of directors approved was a non-motorized bicycle skills park. It's a playground concept. Essentially, I'll show you some real pictures from our day. We just opened the top track for 1 day so people could have a test ride on it. Also, we wanted to find the fail points. If you come to the Arboretum now, you can see it's closed because we're doing pollinator habitat throughout the bike park area. This is just a small top track. One of the things that's nice about these is they're like hydrologically visible. And so the idea being that we can, Minnesota Pollution Control Agency has a lot of rules around dumps and landfills. And so it was a really hard process to make them happy. No kidding, no digging, there's washing machines, there's trucks, there's bumpers, I'm sure many people in here used to take your trash to the Arboretum. It wasn't buried well. So we had to rebury it to build a bike park on it. It's been a very difficult process. It's a very hard project, but it's going to be the biggest bike skills park in central Minnesota when we're finished. And it might end up being the largest in the state if we're able to get the expansion approved.
Can I ask when that will be visible? You said it was open.
We opened it for 2 days and then we closed it for pollinator habitat. We're really hoping for July 12th.
Move it up. couple weeks, so it's July, my granddaughters are coming.
I'll give you a special tour of the top track.
They would love it.
The next thing that we're looking at is forest ice skating. I only have 2 more slides here. The forest ice skating trails as a concept come to us out of Climate Resiliency. We've had 2 really bad cross-country skiing years in a row. We're getting nervous. It's a lot easier to manage and control ice than it is snow. Making snow is really expensive. Running a water truck, running a Zamboni, running a plow, really cheap. So these forest ice skating trails are cute. You go out there, they have music and lights, and you're skating around in the woods at the Arboretum, going through botanical gardens. They drive a lot of recreation tourism to cities. And so this is something where we got it approved in the master plan. I'm gonna be going to Canada and all over the country to look at these things, how they work operationally. And hopefully we can procure $2.5 million to build one of these things. This is a few years down the road. All right, one of the things I'm an expert in and I'm published in is disc golf. I'm an excellent disc golfer. I build disc golf courses. A lot of my research was based in disc golf. There are ways to drive large tournaments to town that can, theoretically make cities, counties, municipal organizations millions of dollars. So we've been studying this in the recreation economics literature for a long time. And it's just another thing that we're looking at to create a diverse revenue mix. There we go. I told you I'd do it in under 10 minutes, it took 11.
This is so exciting. Can I just ask what brought you to this area? Was it the job, or do you have a connection to the area, or why Greater Baxter?
Yeah, so I spent 30 years in North Idaho, but we came out here during our snow season to visit my family on Lax Lake. Some of you might remember the Sled Shed. It was a snowmobile dealership out in Aiken. So I have a lot of family across Minnesota. But I'd be remiss to say it's the disc golf. It is the disc golf that brought me here. I did my master's in Wisconsin. I tour the world, the country, playing disc golf competitively and life competitive. But yeah, it's disc golf, hunting, fishing, backpacking, boating, outdoor recreation.
Well, this is exciting stuff.
Thank you.
Council, any other questions? Baxter, anything to add?
No.
Well, he's an excitable guy, as you can see. And he's brought a level of excitement to the staff and to what's going on out there. Really glad to have you be a part of our community and a great job that you're doing. So we just wanted you to have a chance to talk to us and bring us up to date. So our people help him on occasion. He picks up the phone and calls the other Trevor. He says, I need a front end loader. And Trevor sends somebody out there. And so we try to be accommodating to them wherever we can be. It's been a great partnership. So keep up the good work, both of you, Trevor.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Thanks to the city of Baxter. Greatly appreciate it. I mean, we can't turn our compost pile. I'd be out there for a month trying to turn that big. And, just help moving dirt, just all to help you guys. I just appreciate it. You guys have been awesome.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor.
Cheers. Thanks, guys. See you, Josh.
Any other public comments? Anybody got something you'd like to talk to us about that's not on the agenda? Otherwise, we'll move on.
Mayor, if I can.
Yes, sir.
Just adjustments to the agenda. While there are no items that have been added, I do want to note that the liquor license, we've had several businesses come in after the publication of the packet on Friday. If you look at the Appendix A that was laid in front of you, there are several businesses just below Lakes 12 Theater that have come in since that point. That's Hippin' Ramen, Super America, Cashwise Liquor, Applebee's, Black Bear Lodge, Buffalo Wild Wings, and Viadella. So those are included in your approval for liquor licenses tonight.
Okay. The following items are considered non-controversial by staff and are recommended to be read and passed in one motion. Any council person, staff, citizen, or meeting attendee can request one or more items be pulled from the consent agenda. And the item will be pulled and addressed immediately after the passage of the consent agenda. Otherwise, the following items will be passed in one motion. Number 2, approve the city council work session minutes from May 20th, 2025. Number 3, approve city council minutes from May 20th, 2025. Number 4, approve the payment of bills and finance report. Number 5, accept the Parks and Trails Commission meeting minutes from May 19th, 2025. Number 6, approve proposed revisions to the Recreation Joint Powers Agreement. Number 7, approve the Baxter Parks and Rec Joint Powers 2025-2026 budget. Number 8, approve the appointment to the seasonal position of park attendant. Number 9, adopt resolution 2025-052, selection process for cannabis retail business registration. Number 10, approve the issuance of liquor licenses for the licensing period of July 1st, 2025 through June 30th of 2026.
I like that one, poll please.
Pull that. Number 11, approve the widths of the proposal for professional survey services in the not to exceed amount of $40,000 for the 2026 mill and overlay and full depth reclamation improvements project. Number 12, accept the 2030 Walton Road, Ashley Road, Baywood Road, Black Oak Road, Springwood Drive utility roadway improvements.
Just me. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Please pull number 12.
We're gonna pull number 12 too, okay.
Make motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Cross,
Second.
second by Leslie, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, first item,
Approve the issuance of liquor licenses.
number 10.
Yeah, I'm gonna abstain from voting because I'm on that list.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second. Cross, second by Cabot. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Number 12.
This is the acceptance of the Walton Road 2030 project. That was on the agenda for the work session, and we didn't get to that, so we'll move, looking for a motion to table it to a future council meeting.
So moved.
Motion by Cross,
Second.
second by Leslie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 13, public hearing, annual progress report, stormwater MS4.
Trevor, just note how quickly we've gotten to this point.
Seems like I was here yesterday.
This means something else.
Thank you, honorable
She got it.
members of the council. Today is or I should say, it's that time of year, the beginning of June is typically when we look back on 2024, previous year of our MS4 permit. So every year at the end of June, we're required to report on how we comply with our MS4 permit and any ways we need to improve. So part of our permit is to require opportunity for the public to hear what the city is doing and provide input. Historically, we've always done a public hearing. One thing that I wanted to bring up to council today is there is opportunity to host this feedback session outside of council meetings. We wouldn't have to do public hearings. Many communities are now going more towards open house setting where residents can come learn about it, where they don't have to get up in front of council and provide input, more of an interaction. So one thing, the city of Brainerd, the city engineer reached out and asked if there's something we'd be interested in as we went down the path of joint stormwater on previous adventures, I guess, with the stormwater technician. So reaching out, we discussed maybe we could do something where two communities would get together and provide a presentation, show how we're actually protecting the environment and how we're enforcing our stormwater. And so I guess what I'm asking for is what council like is to continue to hold these public hearings in addition to an open house session, or just an open house session, or just a public hearing.
I think an open house makes a lot of sense. I don't think a lot of members of the public come to these and enjoy this style of doing this.
All that. I appreciate that, Donna, because in the 5 years that I've been doing this presentation, we haven't had one person come and provide any feedback. And so most of our feedback does come through the educational process when we're out in the public interacting. So trying to maybe post something I think would be a good opportunity This year, luckily, you don't have to worry about me giving the presentation. 2021, as part of our 2020 MS4 permit, one thing that we had identified was the need for additional staff due to the additional workload that came with the 2020 permit. So through the process of the last 3 years, finally last year in July, we were able to hire a shared stormwater position with the city of Brainerd. And she's been with us since July and been a great asset to the city. Getting out in the community, doing more education, working with business owners, and hopefully being more on the proactive side so that we can prevent the sediment from ever reaching the river streams or infiltration basins, which will save us money on maintenance costs. So with that, we've got Kelly Robinson. She said she'd be willing to go up and give the presentation so you guys can get a fresh presentation and fresh perspective.
So, as you're aware, municipal separate stormwater system compliance, it is regulated under Clean Water Act. Where this comes from, well, let me back up to give you a briefing of what I'm doing, what this presentation is about, is to provide a brief summary of the MS4 program structure, activities that we've done to date and activities that we're looking to complete in 2025, and then some watch list items that we know will be coming down the path that will likely change the program going forward. So giving you a heads up of that. Like Trevor said, this permit was issued in 2020. City of Baxter was issued coverage in 2021. That permit is coming to term this year. So at the end of this year, we will have completed basically a 5-year set of general permit under the MPCA ownership. What it means to be under the general permit, it gives us the requirement to manage and help to prevent pollution going to our waters, to our local waters, lakes, rivers, streams. It also requires us to implement strategies and processes to ensure that we are preventing and enforcing those limits on activities that not only that we do as a municipality, but that activities that are performed within our city limits from our businesses and residents. So the general framework of the program comes from what we call a stormwater pollution prevention plan. The crux of that, which is, I would say 7 main components. 6 of them are considered minimum control measures. They come from the general permit. They're required to be incorporated by MPCA. And as you can see, they include everything from education, public, to engagement with the public and encouragement of that, to discharges and eliminating those discharges across city limits, managing construction activities, as well as our infrastructure and our own municipal activities. When we talk about how we manage our stockpiles, how we manage our operations, how we manage our infrastructure from a stormwater perspective. Partnerships, you couldn't make this happen without having collaborative partnerships. Because it takes more than just our community, it takes more than just our municipality to make it happen. So we're talking about coordinating with the counties, with other organizations that have the same requirements and the same protocols that they put out there for the public. Program optimization and enforcement. So like Trevor said, and the purpose that we are here today is to take a step back and to look at our program and how we can optimize it. Encourage input from you all as well as the public in taking that input and doing what we can to make a best fit for purpose program that helps our environment. What is our inventory? We have roughly 5 5 lakes, 256 ponds. When you think about stormwater, stormwater is just not what comes from the sky and not what melts from snow melt. But it is basically controlling a conveyance system of which we built that has a direct impact to the environment, to our lakes, waters, and streams. So being able to strategize and develop enforcement and procedures to protect that environment, it becomes very critical, as well as being able to have this inventory protect or provide a safety environment for our community through flood management. Who does it take to make it work? Everyone. We talked about the community, we talked about organizations that have the same message that goes throughout the state. There are 174 MS4s across Minnesota, so they all have the same message that they publish. From that also takes the city participation. And that city participation extends beyond even Baxter, right? We share Brainerd Fire. We have opportunities and needs to incorporate our guests and our tourists that come through the city to recognize the importance of this program and what they can contribute with their existence here. So, talked about the MCM minimum control measures, 6 of them. I'm going to go through them briefly. The first one is public education and outreach. Very important to be able to link the knowledge of the purpose of what this program does to the knowledge of the vast majority of the community who can help us make a contribution. We do this on a regular basis through the website, through quarterly newsletters, and through Facebook. For 2025, we're looking to expand that audience to include opportunities that already exist. For instance, utility bills that go out to many of the Baxter residents, where we can put in either reminders or educational pieces that they can utilize for conversation pieces with their families. Do displays in public gatherings such as this one that are not purposely intended for stormwater, but have an opportunity for someone to be educated if they ever wanted to ask questions or to learn a little bit more about the program that we're developing or have developed. And then shared messages across program platforms. What I mean by that is, as you know, conversations of drinking water supply protections, the wellhead protection program, all of those things that have an environmental protection link. These programs, like stormwater, kind of overlap. They have a domino effect, meaning what we can do to protect, to minimize pollutants that go to our grounds, that go through our conveyance systems, that helps protect our drinking water sources, that helps protect our wellhead protection program that we're mandated to have. So they're basically compounding the positiveness that people can contribute. MCM2 is public participation. Being here today is an opportunity to hopefully elevate and encourage people to have a voice in what this program is about, ask us questions, bring some ideas that maybe we haven't thought of, or that we find that we know that there's interest to participate. We would love to expand on that. Opportunities for 2025. We are looking into trying to be more intentional in the education in the school platform. Specifically, as an example, we would like to go forward to integrate the Baxter program into adopt a drain, to be able to have an opportunity for the public to adopt drains and be intentional in their contribution that they make, whether it be at their own residence or whether it be through school platforms. That program sets us up to be able to expound on what we could consider additional public engagement and participation at multiple levels. Illicit discharge, those are discharges, when we think of the stormwater system, it's easy to think of catch basins and pipes and ponds, but it's more than that. It's the roads, it's the curbing, it's anything that can lead to that system, that conveyance that leads it right to the environment. So we have an obligation to be intentional and looking for those and trying to prevent them before, as opposed to always being reactionary. Having a message to help us do that through public, through businesses, really allows us to be in the forefront of prevention. And it becomes a very important part of this program. As you can see, stormwater is intending to be only water, really, that there are some exemptions like listed here that are uncontaminated, unimpacted. Anything else outside of that, like even a sediment, is something that's considered illicit discharge that needs to be controlled. So MCM4s, this is a kind of a crux of what our goal is as being compliant under the general permit, meaning that we are responsible as a permittee to help enforce the construction stormwater regulations for construction projects. So it comes through 3 big phases. When projects come in for review, to look at those project plans, to implement or ensure that they include the necessary things to be compliant with their project permits, or with their construction permits, and then also to perform active inspections in the field to ensure that those compliance actions are being set forth in the field. Development, implement, enforce. So we have an obligation as a permittee to not only develop the processes to make this happen, to implement them, but then to also show the enforcement. So to be able to show that we are successful in changing areas that need to be changed feeds our compliance role for the general permit. MCO5 for post-construction stormwater. So this is specific to private BMPs that are developed to treat as requirement for impervious lands, and they have to have water that they have to treat on site before it leaves. We have legal mechanisms in place to ensure that they have maintenance processes to take care of those BMPs. As a permittee under the general permit, we have an obligation to check up on them, to make sure that they are able to be successful in managing that BMP for the life of it. So not only do we take care of the structures that we own as a city, but we also take care of, we also try to educate and ensure that the structures that we don't own are being properly managed to meet the expectation for our system. So 6 is really focused on our performance. So 86 miles of roadway. We talk about the sweeping and snow management. All of that comes into the good housekeeping, or the housekeeping processes from municipal operations. It also includes all of the maintenance that we are obligated to perform to ensure that our basins, that our pipes, that our catch basins are sufficiently operational to achieve what they need to be an effective conveyance system. As you can see, that the before and after, for instance, we have, when we see basins that need, like their capacities are compromised or maybe lessened, right? We prioritize those and bring them back to where they ensure that they are able to achieve the treatment that they were initially designed to and meet the capacities of the functions that they serve. So what to watch out for? As Trevor mentioned, the new permit the current permit expires November 15th of this year. We anticipate the agency hopes to issue the new permit at the end of this year. We likely will see remnants of that probably the early part of next year. What we anticipate that the permit will bring to us is that the Mississippi River is one that has, is, as we know, in impaired waters, and it does have a TMDL, which is a maximum daily load for total suspended solids. We anticipate that we are going to carry something similar to have to sample to basically quantify what our contribution is to the river on the impairments that they find on the Mississippi. We aren't sure, but we'll know more shortly. Annual reporting, as you may know, that has been something as part of the program for years up until 2021 when this new permit came out. They are working, the agency is working on an online reporting tool that has yet to be completed, but we understand that it's close. When it is close, they will require us as permittees to go backwards and report the last 3 years of our compliance activity, basically proving what we have done and that we are compliant with our permits. So we anticipate from what they say that that tool likely will be ready later this year. We'll have a look to let it out. EPA jurisdiction for water's definition, that is something that just came up recently, meaning that there are activists out there on our MS4 behalf to ensure that the definition of jurisdictional waters includes the word stormwater. The reason why that is important is that for infrastructure that we own, EMPs right now, we have an obligation to maintenance them, so we don't have to go through a lot of the permitting process because they're basically exempt from being a jurisdictional water under that definition. If that stormwater doesn't carry as an exemption, it is possible that some of the areas that we have to maintenance, we will have to go through formal permitting through DNR and other federal agencies to have access to conduct those maintenance activities that we're obligated to do. Synergy programs on communities, I talked a little bit about that, meaning the wellhead protection and drinking water supply management program, being able to link together safety and health with environmental stewardship from a community perspective to try and help people to understand that compounding good contribution that they do to help with the stormwater program can really hopefully elevate their ownership in it and help elevate their participation in it. Lastly, this is just kind of a first opportunity to raise up, like Trevor said, to remind the programs out there. We would welcome any questions you may have, any opportunities that we can do to make this program fit more purposefully in the community, try to maybe clarify where there's some misgivings on what the intent is, and be able to increase the participation to the extent where we can really make a big difference in our environment for our families as well as our community. Any questions?
Council, any questions, comments? Thank you very much. Move right along, council comments, Connie.
At some point, backing up a little bit, 3 times since our last council meeting, I've been approached when I was out in public about what do we do when my neighbor's property isn't picked up, when there's weeds, when there's too many junk vehicles, how do I report it, then what happens? Barking dogs, there was like 5 or 6 different things that I was approached on, and so that brought me to wondering what is happening with the code enforcement position, because I wanted to make sure I explained it correctly and wasn't being dishonest. I said, yeah, you can report it, but unfortunately we haven't had the manpower to then follow up and make sure that situations were rectified. So I'm just wondering, you don't have to tell me now, but if not now, hopefully soon we can get an update on that position.
We'll provide it.
Okay, that's all.
Zach?
Just one thing is maybe just a general comment. I saw a news article referencing the fact that one of the state statutes that was passed in this legislative session, the article talked about how it's damaging open meeting law. my very brief, not thoroughly researched summary is that it sounds like the state is effectively allowing city councils or other public bodies to have more ability to meet remotely without quite as much restriction. And I just wanted to note that I thought we as a city are doing it well in terms of not really taking advantage of that. And I would personally say I think we should stay status quo, even if that law ends up standing, where it would allow people to remote in much more often. And I know we've talked about we don't have technology to do it anyway right now, but I'm kind of a fan of having us all here in person and having the public be able to see us in person. So just a general comment on that. I'd like to kind of say thanks, but no thanks on that.
Patrick?
So those pale yellow flowers that you're seeing in the ditches and roadways around the area, that's leafy spurge. It's an invasive plant. Now's a good time to spray for it. So if you see any of those pale yellow flowers clustering around any of your properties or anything like that, now's a good time to either pull it and or spray it.
Mark?
Well, as always, watch out for motorcycles, and one of the new laws that came through is lane splitting. So be prepared for someone to sneak between you and the car next to you. Under 25 miles an hour and no greater differential in speed of 15 with the other vehicles. I believe what's the details.
I believe you're right, I need to look into it.
Yeah, so they shouldn't be doing it over 25 miles an hour, but hey, it's kind of nice to sneak up to the front of the line at a stoplight, so.
Nice for you.
Rules are rules, no matter what you ride, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, that's a new rule, Mr. Mayor. Ready?
My wife was on her way to Nessua the other day, and there was bumper to bumper, and a clown came up on his cycle right between them, screaming, scared the bejeebers out of everybody in the first place, and he went right up the middle, and he kept going all the way till he was out of sight. And those are the people that give the bad name to that bunch of people. But she said it was just, it was unbelievable. But, all somebody in the car had to do is not see him, coming, and he would have been close to it. So anyway, it works both ways. Okay, were you done there, Mark?
I was done.
Okay, thank you. I lost my thought here. I should have gone off on a tangent there, but it couldn't have been too important, I guess. Although it is somewhat important. Beetle Bailey is 75 years old today. You might want to know that if you want to send him a card. Beetle Bailey.
Oh, Beetle Bailey.
City Administrator?
Just a friendly reminder, this afternoon was the first meeting that the chamber had with the business community related to, in conjunction with MnDOT, related to the 371 overpass. There's another one scheduled at 7:30 tomorrow morning. If you're interested, please attend. Otherwise, I believe that MnDOT is anticipating having the public open house sometime in mid-July. I don't recall the date offhand, but I'm sure there'll be advertisement to it. But if you are wanting to attend and get a feel of what the business community is saying, the second meeting is at 7:30 tomorrow morning.
I remember now. First of all, I agree with what you just said there. That was what triggered my thought. And I actually tuned into, because I don't have a life, I tuned into the webinar today from the League of Minnesota Cities, and they covered that and talked about how it was going to be really, really relaxed. But the other good news was they said the sales tax moratorium did not get extended, so that was good news. And then, what was the other? Their inactivity was good news in some of those cases there, so.
Yeah, I mean, there are several omnibus bills that haven't been agreed to by either of the chambers. Tax bill being one of them. The leadership is taking over those. I don't know where it's gonna land, but as it relates to the tax omnibus bill, it did sound like there is favorable
direction in regards to sales tax, but we'll see how it ends up when it gets to a special session, what language ends up in the omnibus bill, but there are some areas of where we're seeing some breaking of the impasse that's been there over the last several years, so.
And it sounded like they didn't mess with the plan and zoning part of it either, so they kicked that down their hotel. All right. Anything from our attorney?
There's nothing, Your Honor.
They look for motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to second, all